incident was about to take place that would shake the foundations of the civilized world.
It is time to open your mind. Time to discover your divine self as we navigate this holographic matrix together. Strap in, Cosmic Family, as we slide through this wormhole of cosmic information together in search of the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
It's time to go inside the matrix. With your host, Jimmy Brent.
All right, welcome everybody to Inside the Matrix. We're so happy that you're here with us today. Our special guest is David Weiss. David is an avid researcher, thought leader, and just an amazing guy in the truth community, bringing us a lot of great information. He has appeared on many of today's top YouTube channels and podcasts that promote truth on the internet. He was the former host of the popular Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast, and now he's the host of the Flat Earth podcast and creator of the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's a very cool app. I just got it myself. So anyway, David, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jimmy, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Got my voice back. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Yeah. I did download the app a few days ago, and an interesting feature of it is it puts up a new YouTube or new video every day that people can look at and get a lot of interesting information on the flat Earth. But flat Earth is one of those topics, as you know, where people just it's a hot button for people. They really have a struggle with it because it's so foundational, I think, to people's, sense of security, their sense of knowingness, or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of people get really, really angry just bringing up the topic. But it's something that, I always say on this show, and many of the guests always say on this show too, that we have to keep an open mind. Even if you don't go along with it, that's perfectly fine. We're not trying to convince anybody of anything.
Oh, yes, we are.
But haven't subtly. But keep an open mind. That's what I always say. Keep an open mind. An open mind has the ability to listen and evaluate new information without having to believe or disbelieve it at first. So that's what we ask everybody to do, and be civil. Some people get really, really cranky over this and tend to.
There's a reason. Nobody likes having their ball taken away. Jimmy, when I first heard about Flat Earth, I was that angry person. I banned people from our social media. I got so upset that people were trying to waste my time with this nonsense. And I refused to watch even a 1-minute video. But then I was forced by somebody I respect to watch a video. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to debunk it. And I went in to prove the globe rather than to debunk Flat Earth.
Sure.
And 5 years later, I can't find anything. There's nothing. I'm still willing to admit the Earth is a ball, but I don't think that will ever happen. I'm open to evidence. Haven't seen any.
Yeah, I'm similar in that way. The first thing that popped up for me was years and years ago. I saw Math Powerland, I guess is the name he's going by now. I'm not sure. But anyway, the guy that used to do artwork for NASA, I saw his very, very strange YouTube where he kind of explained about when he used to work for NASA, and they told him that the Earth was flat, and they laughed at him for not knowing it. And I just kind of filed that away. I wasn't sure what to make of it. And then I believe it was 2015, I saw Mark Sargent's, his videos that he did, the Flat Earth proofs, I guess. And man, I had no problem with it whatsoever. I don't know. Some people just, like yourself, they'll set out to debunk it. And then in that process, they realize that you really can't, and that NASA's a fraud. And that's a big part of it too. And another hard thing for people to swallow.
It was Flat Earth Clues by Mark Sargent, one of the first videos that I saw, a series of videos. And it gave it in little bites.
Little snippets, yeah.
Yeah. So, but back, we had it easy. Well, we had it hard and easy. 5 years ago, you just mentioned Flat Earth to somebody, and the ridicule was horrible. Now today, it's like, hey, I've heard about that, and people are actually asking questions. which is way, way, way better than it used to be. But the problem now is you Google flat Earth, you search YouTube for flat Earth, you get pure propaganda. All of the videos are being hidden. Come December 10th, they might purge all of our channels because YouTube is doing a purge of non-economically viable channels. And since we've all been demonetized because, we're saying the Earth is flat, they could very well purge all of us on December 10th or thereabouts. So that's one of the main reasons I have the app going, because it pushes. I can send you a video every day, and then if you watch that video, there's a whole playlist that follows it rather than YouTube's suggestions. You said you got the app? Did you watch today's video?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, by Hibbler Productions.
Yeah, that was very good, really good.
Yeah, you reminded me like when at the beginning they just interviewing people, going, what shape do you think the Earth is? And they're like round, and he's like, can you give me one reason? And the people just look up into space and they're looking and they're like, well, no, I can't. And it's such a great video. So
yeah,
everybody
please really well
watch
done.
that video.
Yeah, it's well done. And I think you can find it on that YouTube channel as well. Now, is that ODD that does that as well?
No. He's in that video because they're friends. And so he made a little clip at the end for them. We all collaborate. There's clips of mine in there. Everybody uses in this community. We all like take pieces of other people's stuff and repackage it. And this guy's a real professional. But that video and all the other videos, even if you don't have the app, you can just go to the Facebook page, the Flat Earth. The Flat Earth Clock app page. Or just download the Flat Earth Clock, the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app.
Now that's on Apple and iOS and Android, right?
Correct. And if you just type in Flat Earth Clock, it's the top hit. There's one paid app above it, but besides that, you'll find it.
Yeah, it's a cool app. It has a lot of other stuff on it too, like weather things, and it's got a lot to it.
I give the challenge. I tell people that are flat earthers use it when they're talking to somebody about flat Earth. They break out the app and they show them how the seasons work, how the sun goes around, how it laps the moon, how the stars lap the sun. And everyone goes, oh, that's how it works. So it's a great tool for that. It also, the feeding of the video every day. I tell people, hey, don't believe in flat Earth. Get the app, watch the video every day for 2 weeks, and then you will know you don't live on a ball. And I get the same thing every time. People go, I took the app challenge, but on day 1, I didn't want to wait. So I went into the archives. I watched everything for 2 days. I haven't eaten or slept. Oh, my God, the Earth is flat.
It happens to so many people. And, if you haven't done that process, you really don't get what we're talking about. But so many people have done that. I binge watched everything I could, once I really began to realize this stuff. And Eric Dubay had a lot of good information. But the problem, especially early on, I don't think, maybe it's not quite as bad now, but so many of the people that had YouTube channels talking about flat Earth, they started attacking each other, and that just was really detrimental to the whole, to all the concept. And of course, we had the trolls were out in force, right?
Well, I will tell you that that's the only thing that the elite have against us. They can't really do anything to us unless we agree. So what they do is they divide us. They put fake flat earthers in there. They have, people that are maybe, posing as leaders and they're not leaders, controlling the opposition. They divide us up in every way. They divide us by country. They divide us in countries by states, by towns, by, blue versus red, Republican, Democrat. They divide us by sports teams. They divide us by, competing companies. We're just divided, races, everything. And when they divide us like that, that's how they conquer, divide and conquer. That's their MO. So they get people fighting in the flat Earth. Is it the AE map right? Is it the map? Does the sun go in a straight line? Does it circle? There's so much evidence towards a circling sun, but we don't know for sure the exact construct of everything. But one thing that we do know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, proven scientifically, is that we don't live on a spinning ball. Everyone, no matter what model they believe in the flat Earth, knows that. It can prove that. So we're all on the same page. We just have to remember, the infighting has pretty much gone away. That was at the beginning. because they're losing now. There's too many flat earthers. There's too many of us.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it's fascinating to see how it's become much more popular. And there still is the opposition, and then that one quintessential question that comes up. Well, why would they do that, David?
Yeah, I go to. There's a small conspiracy group in my town, and these people are. They're awake to a lot of things, but flat Earth was not on their list. So I went to a few meetings. I bit my tongue. I didn't say anything. They're talking about stuff that, okay, they don't realize nuclear bombs are fake. They don't realize this, that, but that's okay. And I kept quiet, and I brought up flat Earth a little bit. And then I offered to do a presentation, and they're like, you know what? Flat Earth is stupid. We don't want to do it. And then, I offered again, and they're like, okay, we'll give you 20 minutes. And I'm like, no. I need the whole 3 hours. And then a couple of people emailed and said, we really want to hear about flat Earth. So I went there, and this was just yesterday, and I blew their minds. They're all, and the one thing I forgot to tell them is when you go home, don't run in the house and blurt out the Earth is flat. Right. Sit on it for a couple days, because you're going to be ridiculed and you're not going to know the answer. You need to do some research. And I got so many calls last night. Well, I talked to my husband, and he says, airplanes fly over a pressure gradient. I'm like, yes, they do, over a flat Earth. And I literally had to put out a bunch of fires. But it was a lot of fun talking to people that can wake up. It's super fun.
Oh, it is. And let's just go through some of the basics, because the people will always come out with the same questions, because that's the programming, right? They've seen globes in their classroom since they were in grade school. And, they always have the same questions. School. Yeah, even before. And so let's just start with ships going over the horizon. You want to jump on that?
Yeah, so the optics of looking over water are truly amazing, and they change on a daily basis. So you look at a building, like I can see down Long Island Sound to New York City, and the bottoms of the buildings are cut off. Well, there's a bunch of reasons for that. What globers will do is they'll go, look, the bottom third of that building is missing. Therefore, it's Earth's curvature. But what they don't realize is the top of the building should be 200 feet below the curve, and right. We can see the whole building. Okay. Taboo Conspiracy 2, which is a great channel, literally 2 minutes ago, put up a 5-minute video proving the Earth is flat, just by zooming in and seeing this known, I don't know, I think it was a rock or a tower or whatever it was, that should be, a certain number of feet below the horizon, but we can see the water that's beyond that, way, way beyond it. And so what's that? Water popped up beyond the curvature. I mean, a thinking mind that looks at this can start to see that the optics of things over the distance are very tricky. One of the things that happens in water, when you're looking out and that horizon is kind of rising and getting closer to eye level, you get a mirage, and that mirage buries things behind it. It hides buildings, it hides boats, and things go into that and disappear. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is most of the time when you see a boat disappear, it's just because its angular size got too small. Break out a Nikon P900, zoom in on it, and there's the boat again, and there's more water behind it. So there is no curvature. Therefore, the Earth is not a ball.
And when we say flat, we're not talking about, it's perfectly flat. No, of course, there's mountains, there's valleys, there's all that kind of thing. We're not saying that they don't exist or anything like that, because some people go there and they go, it's not flat. There's a mountain range right next to my house. Yeah. We're not trying to say that.
Water droplets round. The water droplets round, but any large body of water at rest lays flat. A cup of water, yes, it curls up on the edges a little bit. To me, that might be what's happening in Antarctica, which is the shoreline that surrounds the flat Earth's ocean.
Explain that a little bit.
Seawall. So we're taught that that Antarctica is a continent at the bottom of a ball with a circumference of about 13,000 miles, I think. And that makes sense if you look at a globe. Okay, I get it. But on the flat Earth model, Antarctica is the shoreline that surrounds the world ocean. Okay, so the example I say on a smaller scale, you're in Kansas, very flat in Kansas, and let's say there's a lake that's 10 miles across, a circular lake with a 10-mile diameter. In the center of that lake is a pole, well, a magnetic pole. We'll call that the North Pole. And then there's a bunch of islands scattered throughout the lake, and we'll call those all the continents. Okay, you're on your little sailboat. You break out a compass. The needle points to the center, and you can go west or east. But west and east are circles because that needle will keep turning as you're moving west. So you have to keep turning to make a circle. Now, this is true on a flat Earth and on a globe Earth. Okay, if you're 1 mile from the North Pole on a spinning ball, and you go east or west, you have to remain 1 mile from that pole to maintain that heading of 90 or 270, which is east or west. 3.14 miles later, if you remember your math, you'll be back to where you started and you circumnavigated the north. Move yourself farther, move yourself to California. You can go west and go over to Japan, across the Middle East. The Far East, and come back around, and you're right back to where you were. But you made a circle where you were constantly correcting to the north. That always happens. What nobody has ever done is gone south, because once you go south, you never come back. Yes, you can go from New York over Alaska, up close to the North Pole, and go to the Far East. And then you can come east or west back, or back over the top. That's fine. That works on a flat Earth and a ball Earth. What you can't do, and should work on a ball Earth, is go south, go underneath the ball, and come up the other side. Nobody's ever done that because that's not where we live. The Earth is flat. Antarctica is the shoreline that surrounds the world. And what's beyond that shoreline is off limits to everybody.
Yeah. And what year was it that they signed that Antarctica Treaty?
1959, right after Admiral Byrd announced that there's more land beyond Antarctica, bigger than the United States, that no human has ever seen. Maybe he found another continent out there. Maybe maybe he's lying. We don't know because we're not allowed to go there. But there's been ancient maps found that show dozens of other continents out there and other, waters. There's possibly, there's so many possibilities out there, but we don't know because we can't go there. So I try to stick to the things that we can prove right under our feet. And then we could take time and speculate on what's out there or what's above our heads.
Okay, and here's another thing that people always say. They talk about the stars and say, we're all just hurtling through space at the same rate and same everything. That's why the stars always line up from the same way they did thousands of years ago. But that's simply not true. And then the North Star is basically stationary. How do you explain that? That's.
Yeah, so they'll say, excuse me. They'll say that on a spinning ball, the axial pole, of rotation, if you drew a line straight up, it points to the North Star, and that's why the North Star stays perfectly still. You've seen all the time lapses of the circular stars going around Polaris, which is the North Star. That would, on a spinning ball, that would only be possible if the spinning ball was stationary and you were exactly at the North Pole. Okay, if you're off the North Pole, so I'm going to try to paint a picture here. You got your spinning globe, and it's pointing over, at the far wall in your room, towards the top of the room. It's got its tilt to it, and you put yourself on the United States, which is a little ways away from the point, right where the United States is, about a third of the way down, maybe a little more. And you have a bunch of dots on that wall, okay, and it's not rotating, right? You have some dots above that line of axial rotation, Polaris, that it's lined up with, and you have some dots below it, right? As soon as you move that globe to the right, spin it to the right, all of those dots, the ones above and below, are going to move to the left. They're not going to make perfect circles around. That only works when you are exactly at the North Pole. But worse than that is if you go out tonight at midnight or whatever time and look up at the stars and chart all of the stars that you see, their exact positions, and then a year later you go back out, or 10 years later or 50 years later, all of those stars are in the exact same place. All right. Meanwhile, we're orbiting at 66,000 miles per hour, chasing the sun at 600,000 miles per hour. We're traveling billions of miles a year, and all of the stars are exactly where they were a year before, a decade before.
Or thousands of years ago.
We don't know. We haven't been here thousands of years. How long?
We see the depictions from ancient, tablets and things like that.
We don't know how old those things are. We really don't. We can't date anything. We can't really trust anything past 1850. Anything before that is really up for grabs. They've rewritten history.
We know that.
There's evidence of ancient, not ancient. I don't want to say ancient civilizations, of advanced, technologies and civilizations. The buildings that they built, supposedly when there was horse and buggies, and the pilgrims landed, they have
Tartaria.
Stuff that it's insanity to think that we're at the peak of civilization. We're not. We're at probably the lowest point of where this world has been.
Yeah, and it's a sad thing, but
yeah.
Definitely, the point is that the constellations and the stars remain in the same position. So we are not hurtling through space. We're not whipping around in a frenzy at 1,000 miles an hour spinning. Those things are pretty obvious. Although the programming is incredibly heavy. We get that indoctrination in all of the science classes, from day one in school, in our public indoctrination centers. And that's really the tough part, that people really struggle with, because that's ingrained into their whole thought process of what cosmology and science is about pertaining to this subject.
They're using wizardry tricks on babies. We have everything is space. Cartoons are space. Sesame Street. They have NASA guys, astronauts on Sesame Street. All of this stuff is to program us that, yes, we live on a ball. Men can fly to another ball and walk on it and play golf and ride dune buggies around, and it's crazy. Okay, the mind programming. You're programming a child when they have no idea. They have no ability to fight back. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of our big weaknesses as human beings, is that humans are incredibly susceptible to programming. And it's because, generally, I think a lot of people are very trusting. A lot of them are very gullible. And once you learn to think critically, though, all that stuff goes away and that programming doesn't work too well anymore. So anyway, we're coming up on the break. The time is flying by, David. This is great. We're going to get into a lot of really interesting topics here. So stick around with us. Jump in the chat. Shoot us a question. Give us a call. You're listening to Inside the Matrix. We'll be right back.
Your ambassador to the unknown and host of Inside the Matrix, Jimmy Brent.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're with our guest today, David Weiss, and we're talking about flat Earth and some related topics of interest. David, before we get going here again, we did have a question from the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and read it right now. Joe is asking, what is the best way for a normal person to actually work their way through this flat Earth topic and decide for themselves what is true and not? Great question. He says it's hard to find any info out there that isn't really manipulated. Give me an assignment that won't take me more than a week. Thank you. So
you know what? More than a week. That's excellent that he said that, because most people say, give me a video that's less than 3 minutes. People want to learn everything. They have what's called the Twitter mentality. I start out a lot of my not a lot of them, a couple interviews, but I did it yesterday at my conspiracy group meeting at the library. where I introduced myself and I told everybody that I went to medical school for 3 years and then dropped out because I thought allopathic medicine was absolutely ridiculous. And I started looking at natural cures. And then I kind of went on a little bit. And then I talked about belief is the enemy of knowing, which Crow 777 coined.
Yep.
Okay. Belief is easy. And I tell these people, I said, you believe that I went to medical school. I go, and that's it. Your day's done. You have nothing else do. But if you really want to check, you have to figure out where I went to school, what, and it's going to take you a week and effort and time. And then you'll find out I never went to medical school. And so I outright lie to them just to make the point. So the flat earth is, you believe that you live on a ball and you don't know how big it is. You don't know how fast it's moving. You don't know how far the sun is. You don't know anything about it, but people believe it. So as we talked about earlier, the information is being hidden. The app, the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, that's what I say is the fastest way. Because in the app, I don't know if you noticed, there's a button on the right that says FAQs. You click that, your top 21 questions are there. Your next 20 I got you questions are there. You click it, it brings you to a playlist of videos that will explain away any doubts that you have. So that's what you should do, Joe. Get the app, watch the video every day, check out the frequently asked questions, and you don't need me. All the information's there.
Well, here's another thing that we kind of touched on before, but we really need to accentuate this issue, is that YouTube especially has really stuffed down all the best flat earth videos. I mean, you can find them if you go through endless pages of videos that they'll pop up, but they'll always pop up these so-called debunkers out there who are just, nothing more than trolls just trying to, muddy the water. So it is a little harder. Joe makes a good point, because there is a lot of, crazy info out there that doesn't make any sense. So it's a little tougher than it used to be a couple of years ago before they started doing all that.
A lot tougher. The one of the go-to videos is by ODD Reality. And he's an amazing YouTuber, makes great presentations, great movies. Yep. And his go-to video is called, the exact name is A Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth, 21 Questions. So if you type in YouTube, A Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth, 21 Questions, ODD Reality, which is the name of his channel, it should be the top hit. It's not. You get all of the debunking. You get the Nat Geo shows up first as one of the top hits. It's not until like the third or fourth page that you can find that video, if it shows up at all. So that just shows you that YouTube is trying to control the narrative. I wanted to touch before when we were talking about looking across the water, and I talked about how things disappear due to mirage. There's also a new term out there called the ether band, and it's because you're looking across the thickest part of the water, you're looking through the ether, and it creates an illusion, which is called the ether band. And you'll see that as you watch more and more of these zooming in on boat videos. But the one thing that people go to is Nat Geo went to one of the Salton Sea tests that we did, where we were taking a laser, or I think it was a laser, but whatever that, no, mirror flash across the Salton Sea, and they took a rowboat out, and and they had it kind of looked like a flag, but it was a big board with red and white stripes, or red and black, whatever color the stripes were. And they held it over the side, at the side of the boat at the edge of the water. And the boat started going away, and they're looking. When the boat got out there, I don't know, maybe it was a mile, 2 miles, whatever it was. They said, look, the bottom two stripes are missing. And that's because it's going over the curvature. Okay. And people just buy that. But what people didn't realize, if you look beyond the boat, you can see the water beyond the boat. Okay?
So how's that possible?
Yeah. So what you're seeing there is, you're looking across the water, little waves in front of you, like a 3-foot wave 100 feet in front of you is a lot bigger than a 3-foot wave a mile away from you, right? Because of perspective, how things shrink down. Mm-hmm. Well, that 3-foot wave 100 feet in front of you, if it's a millimeter above your eye level, right? Your eyes are now, your line of vision is now sloped upwards. And anything in the distance, as it's getting smaller and smaller and getting closer and closer to the water, it's tinier and tinier. It may drop below that new horizon that you have in the foreground that you can't even see. And that's how things disappear. That's one way. They go behind the ether band, as I mentioned. They go into refraction. The optics are insane. But the problem, as I said earlier, unless the Earth is flexing in curvature, in the amount of curvature, it doesn't matter. If there's a 500-foot building the top of the building should be 200 feet below the curvature, and you could see the top 400 feet of that building, that tells you that the Earth is not curved.
Yeah, and that you brought up a good point too, that about visual perspective. People don't realize that the human eye, is somewhat limited when we look long distance. And a good example of that, the way to visualize that is to visualize like you're in a giant hotel and you're looking down the hallway. And there's lots of pictures of this you can find on the internet too. It looks like the walls are closing in, the ceiling and the floor are merging, coming into a point way, way, way down there. And of course, if you were to walk way, way down there, it would be the exact same size as the hallway that you're in when you started. But because of visual perspective, it looks like everything's shrinking in the distance. And this is one of the effects that we see with the sun. And people say, oh, it's going over the horizon. Look at it, look at it's going away because we're spinning, that kind of thing.
One of the other proofs that people say, because you see different stars in the southern hemisphere, therefore the Earth is a ball, right? Well, that's what you've been brainwashed and programmed to believe. But here's a way to visualize it. Imagine you're in a big room, and it's got recessed lights in the ceiling. Those are the stars. 10-foot high ceiling. Now we're going to expand that room to make it a mile long. Okay, a mile square room. Square room, a mile wide, a mile long. You're on one side of the room. I'm on the other side of the room. If we drew a line down the middle of the room dividing us, we'll call that the equator. So you're on the southern side of the room. I'm on the northern side of the room. And when we both look up, we're going to see different stars. I'm not going to be able to see the stars that you see, and you're not going to be able to see the stars that I see, and you're not even going to be able to see me because the ceiling is going to merge with the floor, and I'm going to be too small to see.
Yep.
Right. So that's another thing. That's what they don't teach us in school. The angular resolution limits of your eyes. They don't teach you really much about perspective. That was taken out. They don't teach you about the curvature formula for Earth. You may know what it is, but I didn't know any of these things before I started to try to prove that the Earth was a globe. And every single proof doesn't exist. You just can't come up with anything.
Yeah, and there's you can find the trigonometry equation out there for the Earth, because the Earth is approximately 25,000 miles in circumference, and there are charts out there that'll show you, like if something's 50 miles away, how far over the horizon it should be. So you can look that kind of stuff up. So if you're in a place where you can see something that you shouldn't be able to see, that's something that occurs all the time and is a pretty good proof that we're not on a spinning globe ball. Lighthouses is another thing. People can sometimes see the light from a lighthouse over 100 miles.
100 miles is 6,000 feet of curvature. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. That's over a mile.
Yeah.
So that light should be over a mile beyond what you can see.
Right.
And,
every time that we show another proof, the ball zealots, the religious ball people, they move the goalpost. They change the rules. They say they add different things to the calculator. Even if you take their most severe calculator on how much curve there should be, divided in half just to give them the benefit of the doubt, you still can't see things. And
right.
You shouldn't be able to see things that we can see. And now that we have infrared on converting our cameras to infrareds, we're seeing things that are 500 miles away. These things are impossible.
Impossible. Yeah, that's a great new term that's coming up. Another thing that is super interesting is that if you're flying in a plane and you're maintaining your altitude, let's say you're flying 30,000 feet up in the air and you're maintaining that straight and level altitude, if you're on a ball, eventually, and not very, and at 500-600 miles an hour, you're going to be zooming off into the upper atmosphere pretty quick, unless you keep nosing down to accommodate for the curve. You won't be able to maintain your altitude.
A mile every 2 minutes. But the ballers will say that the plane is following a pressure gradient. And you know what? It probably is following a pressure gradient. But what they don't realize is they think that it's following a pressure gradient, which is making them curve around a ball, when in fact, it's just following a pressure gradient on top of a flat Earth. That makes a lot more sense. A pressure gradient existing on a flat stationary Earth, okay, where you have denser air molecules down lower, lighter ones up higher. Makes perfect sense, rather than a spinning, whizzing ball. I tell people, you believe the Earth is spinning, so when you watch the sunset, you believe that you're falling over backwards at about 1,000 miles per hour, and that is making the sunset. They're like, well, I don't believe that. I'm like, well, yes, you do. You don't even know what you believe. The funny thing is, the ball, or the spinning ball Earth model, once you understand what it is the most ridiculous thing that a 2-year-old should reject. They should be like, that's stupid. It's unreal, but people are so brainwashed. What about Aristophanes 500 years ago, sticks and shadows? What about boats over the horizon? What about seeing different stars? What about seasons? I mean, seasons prove that we don't live on a ball. It's insane.
Yeah, because even the globe model talks about us being we're in sort of an elliptical orbit, they say, around the sun, and at the time that we should be heating up, being closer to the sun, it doesn't work that way. I mean, none of that stuff works out. It's just incredibly ridiculous. And if you've ever been on a what is that playground thing where you spin around on it?
Merry-go-round?
Just kind of a merry-go-round. And, the whole thing is, the faster it goes, the harder it is to hang on, because you're whipping around. But gravity explains why trillions of gallons of water just hugs to the spinning ball at 1,000 miles an hour.
Jimmy, a globe argument will say is, now get on that merry-go-round and make it rotate once every 24 hours, right? That's a boring ride, and you probably won't even notice that it's moving. You know what? I'll agree with that. But now let's extend that merry-go-round to 10 miles wide. All right, now you're moving at a few feet per hour. All right, you're moving. You'll definitely feel it. Now move it to what's the circumference of the Earth? 8,000 miles. No, that's 25,000 miles in circumference.
Right.
So now you're moving 1,000 miles per hour. Don't tell me that you're not gonna feel that. I mean, we're spinning, we're orbiting, and we're speeding up and slowing down. So every 24 hours, our rotational, our speed through space is changing by 2,000 miles per hour, because we're spinning towards the direction we're going, and now we're spinning not in the direction we're going as we come around 12 hours later. So that's a 2,000 mile per hour speed up and slow down every day.
Mm-hmm. And then different parts of this so-called elliptical orbit, you're going faster and slowing down on a macro level as well. So it's just so crazy. It's hard to imagine, once you dive into this, why anybody would want to hang on to that whole concept. Which brings me to our next really interesting thing to talk about, and that's the NASA.
Yeah.
The NASA, I want to call them NASA, HOLES, but it's just a complete hoax. And if people think that we actually landed on the moon and did all, played golf and did all this stuff, it's just really sad.
I did a presentation in Dallas where we took apart the space shuttle. The space shuttle that we're all emotionally attached to because we all saw this poor school teacher blow up, on the one time that they brought a television into every classroom. Everybody got to watch the teacher going into space, and a minute after launch, the whole thing blows up, and everyone dies. That is trauma-based mind control, kicking the can down the road, so they don't have to, live up to their, hey, we're going to have hotels in space promise. But have you looked into the Challenger? All of the people that the around there happen to have twin brothers and sisters, or most of all but one of them, that are alive and well and working in universities. And my favorite is Dick Scobie. He has a company, something in cows, where the logo animation on his website is a cow flying through the air with smoke coming out of his rear end, looping around just like the trail did on the Challenger disaster.
Oh my God.
It's unreal. It's absolutely unreal. But the Challenger, the space shuttle, is a blimp. It's an actual the external tank is a helium-filled blimp, rocket assisted. There's a video on my channel. My YouTube channel is DITRH, which are the initials for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. And just look for it's down a little bit, probably maybe 10, 15 videos back. The Space Shuttle Blimp, it's called. It'll blow you away. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And while making that video, while I'm proving that these things are balloons, okay, these things that go up are just balloons, I noticed something else. When it was down, I was trying to figure out, was it 20 miles down from away, or was it 35 miles away when the booster separates from the space shuttle? So, excuse me, I'm dying here. When the booster separates from the space shuttle, so I went with the shorter one, 20 miles. When it separates, you hear the separation the second it happens. There's less than a second delay. At 20 miles, do you know how long that delay should be between what you see and what you hear? 90 seconds. We shouldn't hear it for a minute and a half, okay? And we see and hear it at the exact same time, because if you didn't hear it, you'd realize how fake it looks. But they're using sound, and you hear kids in the background, you hear people clapping. It's this whole wizardry mix of sound. And when you watch any rocket launch, within the first 5 seconds, they cut like 4 or 5 times, different camera angles. But if you slow it down and watch, you'll see different clouds in the sky, no clouds in the sky, a gray sky, a blue sky, different everything. It's all just edited Hollywood nonsense.
You gotta love it. Yeah, it's mind-boggling. But don't forget, David, that President Nixon spoke to the astronauts on the moon with no delay on his landline.
Well, that's because he was transmitting straight up. I can't even talk about it, Jimmy, because it's so ridiculous. And people want to be spoon-fed the information. They're like, show me this, show me that. They ask me questions on the app, and I'm going to keep pushing the app because it's waking people up. The frequently asked questions. You can email me, my info at theflatearthpodcast.com. But if it's in the app, I'm just going to point you to the app and tell you where to get it. All the questions, every question that a ball believer has is answered in the app.
Who's that idiot astronaut?
Don Pettit.
Oh my gosh. You got everybody out there. You've got to find the video where he says, "We'd love to go back to the moon, but we destroyed that technology and it's a painful process to get back." I kid you not. This is one of astronauts, or NASA's top astronauts saying this. And unfriggin' believable that they're saying, "Oh, we lost all the telemetry tapes. We lost the technology." And that's not even to go into the whole Van Allen belt thing where now they're saying they can't actually go through it, although we went through it there and back 6 times in the late 60s and early 70s, right?
Did you see the Polish astronaut that was being interviewed the other day?
Yeah, I did. Go ahead and tell him about it.
And he basically, they was thrown a sideball question. Some people think the Earth is flat. Is the Earth flat? And he's like, I didn't expect that question, but yeah, it's flat. I assure you, it's flat. And that's what he said.
Oops. Yeah, they didn't mean for that one to get out there. Yeah, it's all a big hoax. It's all a psyop. Just like so many other things in our world today, we're being constantly deceived so that we're in a state of confusion. And our school systems have done a great job in teaching us not to think critically. And, truth will always stand up to scrutiny, and the lies will crumble quickly and have to be maintained constantly. And that's what we're seeing all the time. The fact that they have to hide all of these videos and, shadow ban channels and do all this kind of stuff, that tells you right there, what truth is about, because that's the last thing they want to proliferate.
Yeah, if you believe that you're an insignificant speck spinning on a ball, lost in space, you'll believe anything. So that's the main goal, just to keep you lost. So you don't know who you are, where you are, and more importantly, what you are and what you're capable of. That's because if people knew what they were capable of, the governments would all dissolve. Everything would dissolve. So that's the reason.
Yep. Okay. We're coming up on the next break. Stick around with us, people. Please shoot some questions in the chat or give us a call. We're here with David Weiss on Inside the Matrix. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back once again, everybody. We're with David Weiss having a very interesting conversation. And I would like to suggest that if you're out there and you feel like, these guys are really Looney Tunes, flat Earth is crazy, it doesn't make any sense, call in. Let's have a civil conversation. Let's just discuss it a little bit, because you may find that there are some legitimate reasons for us thinking the way that we do. And I think we've been talking about a lot of those. But there are people who, just no matter what you say or no matter what proofs you put out there, just aren't going to go along with it. But we're willing to have a conversation with anybody about that.
I'm also willing to give somebody $1,000 for one globe Earth proof, just one.
And NASA pictures are not proof.
NASA admits that they have no photos of Earth, that they're all CGI. NASA will never use the word photograph for an image of Earth. They say images and pictures, and we know what images and pictures are.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that either, that they admit that they don't actually have photographs of Earth. How is that possible? And how is it possible that all these supposed shuttle and space station videos and everything, nobody's ever pointed the camera back at Earth, for over a 24-hour period?
One of my favorite videos that Jaron from the Jaronism channel did was
love
called
Jaron.
NASA, why don't you have a camera on the moon? Because the same side of the moon always faces the Earth. So if you put a camera on it, pointing at the Earth, so you can see it spin, you can watch eclipses, you can see real-time weather. NASA wouldn't even have to pay for it, because Nestle and Pepsi would pay for it. Okay,
right.
And it would be the biggest, most incredible live stream ever, but they haven't done it. They can't do it. No. It's crazy. And also, the photo of the Earthrise on the moon, where you see the Earthrise. Well, all the places that they landed, since it's the same side that faces Earth, the Earth should have been above their heads, not at the horizon. But another problem with that is the Earth is about the same size as the moon is from the Earth, when it should be 6 times larger and a heck of a lot brighter, because the Earth is a lot more reflective with its oceans than a dusty, dirty, rock in space.
Exactly. And what you're saying is that when they're standing on the moon looking at Earth,
it should be above their head.
Like it's a moon. Yeah, but it looks like it's the size of the moon that we see looking the other way, when in fact it should have been, way huge for them
Yeah.
looking at the Earth.
Right.
And all the pictures that they have or whatever they are don't show that at all.
Right. And we took from their website their Earthrise shot, took it off their website, put it in Photoshop, cranked up the levels, and what do we get? We get a perfect box around the moon showing that it was clearly cut and pasted in there. NASA, when they had that picture, and when they're telling us their stories about boats over the horizons, they didn't know that everyone's going to have Photoshop. They didn't know that we're going to have with 135 times zoom or whatever it is. They didn't know that we were going to be able to pick this stuff apart.
Exactly. Yeah, the technology has caught up with them. We've got a call, David, so let's take one from Renee.
Hello?
Go ahead, Renee. You there?
Hey, hi. Yeah,
hi, Renee.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
How you doing? I'm great. I've actually been looking into this topic for a couple of years now, and it's really been intriguing. Now, David, you, I believe you put out a couple of videos regarding the sun and the way it sets. I'm still a little confused about as far as how the sun works on a flat Earth.
Yeah, so that's a little. I'll try to paint a picture on the radio, but it's a lot easier to show it with graphics. But it is pretty simple. So people say that looking, if the Earth was flat, after the sun sets, you should be able to zoom in on it like you can and make it reappear just like you can with a boat. But there's a difference. So we're a terrestrial viewer, it means we're on the Earth. And let's talk about a boat for a second. A boat goes far, far away, and it gets so small you can't see it. And people think it went over the curve. You zoom in. We're zooming in from a terrestrial position to another terrestrial object. The sun is a celestial object. It is above the atmosphere. It is, and what I call the cloud layer. Even when there's no clouds, I call it the cloud deck. Okay, because as you look across, it becomes thicker and thicker and thicker until it becomes opaque. I call it the deck of opacity. Well, over a short distance, 20, 30 miles, that atmospheric deck at 5,000, 10,000 feet, however high it is, merges with the horizon. It becomes indistinguishable. The space between the Earth and that cloud deck becomes a horizon line, and so that's where you see the horizon. The sun is above that, so as it moves away, it's literally just like something like an airplane flying over your head, and there's a building across the street, and it goes beyond the building, and it just sets from the bottom up because it's moving beyond that deck of opacity. That is one way that the sun sets. The other thing is we're blinded. We're taught that about light years. We believe that light travels forever. When I say we, the heliocentric schooling indoctrination system tells us that light travels for billions of years and trillions of miles, and that's nonsense. The throw of the sun's light is very, very limited. It's very short, and on my channel, DITRH, I have a series called the Sun Fade Out videos, where I took my drone on a super clear day, faced it west, which is not over water, super dry. Usually it's a freezing cold day, so there's no moisture in the air. And the sun will appear to go down due to perspective, but when it gets right to around that horizon line, if the deck of opacity is not there because it's super clear day, the sun stops going down, and then it just fades into nothing. And so I'm watching the sun get smaller and smaller and smaller until it literally just fades out and goes where you can't see it. You can see that it's still there, but it disappears into the thickness of the air. We call that the ether band. And I'm able to demonstrate that in my presentation in Dallas. I showed it with a light over a glass dome. So there's different ways of sunset. But when I'm watching that with my drone, I'm on the ground. The sun's already set. People down at the beach at the same time saw the sunset 10 minutes earlier, and I'm still able to see it. And that's just because the sun isn't going down; it's just going away. Sorry for the long answer, but it's an involved question.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. It's literally going out of basically your perspective view. My daughter's an artist, so she basically works with perspective all the time. So that makes perfect sense. I mean, the more I listen to this, and more it makes sense to me. It really resonates deep within me, and I really thank you for really pushing this stuff out, because this is really interesting information that you're putting out.
Here's something that flat earthers and globe earthers should do. If you meditate already, that's great. People that don't meditate, it might be a little harder. Go outside on a nice day, right? Sit down, close your eyes, get in a sit up, like you're about to meditate, and spend 5 minutes meditating and pretending that you live on a spinning ball. You're spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. You're orbiting at 66,000 miles per hour. You know how fast it is? I'll tell you how fast it is. It doesn't exist. Nothing can go that fast. And you're chasing the sun at over 500,000 miles per hour. Meditate on that for 5 minutes, and then walk around and see how you feel. You're gonna feel like you're a lunatic. Then come out and imagine that you're sitting on a flat stationary plane, and that you are not moving, and that the ether above you, the luminaries in the sky, are all rotating around a center point, and everything is as it is, as you sense it. And you're going to feel this inner peace, because your inner being knows this to be the truth. It's just your ego and mind training through your whole life that has convinced you of nonsense. That's why I call it the helio-nonsensical model. That's a new term.
Nice. Yeah, and I will download your app. I'm going to check it out. I haven't gotten to it yet, but it does seem very interesting. You said you put videos out every day, basically explaining the flat Earth.
Yeah, so every day, in the morning, East Coast time, I'll put a video on. I try to do short ones during the week, longer ones on the weekend, and then I'll do a little push notification a little while after. Will come through. That'll just tell you what the video is about. And if you're researching this, everyone's like, I get enough notifications on my phone. Everybody loves the push notification for the flat Earth, because, hey, this is something I'm really interested in. It's not like an ad or anything. And you could it just reminds you to go to the app, click the video, watch the video while you're having your breakfast or whatever, and start your day off with a proper thought, and see how your life improves.
All right. Sounds good. I'll do that.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate the call.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate the call. When we discuss things like the flat Earth, it reminds us of how incredibly programmed we are in so many different ways. It's not just about this. I mean, literally every part of our life is programmed to deceive us in one way or another. We really don't know what our true history is. There's the saying that history is written by the victors to make them look good, and there's a lot of truth to that. So we really don't understand what's happened. There's an entire nation or country called Tartaria that was in mid-Asia between where Russia is now and China. And up until about 1850, it was on all the maps. It was huge, gigantic country. And it just literally disappeared off all the maps, and nobody ever talks about it.
It's crazy. I know.
I mean, that's just one example. And I've also seen maps of the United States or America before Columbus ever supposedly came here, and there's cities all over the place on these old maps from the 13th, 14th century,
with buildings that we couldn't build today. We'd have difficulty building today. If you look just in Boston, there's some churches and some incredible buildings that were supposedly built when the Pilgrims got here, horse and buggies and chisels. I mean, it's insanity.
Yeah, and that's something that people can look into if they're curious. Like, I always tell people I have an insatiable curiosity, and that's kind of led me to look at a lot of these things. And if you're like me and you want to look at something new and interesting, start. There's plenty of Facebook pages that have great information and pictures and all kinds of stuff about Tartaria. So it's Tartaria, and
it gets crazier than that. Tartaria. Start looking into Titans. And the giants that were here, and the giant trees, and it's crazy. But there's a playlist, and if you're not awake to the flat Earth and don't get it 100%, do not watch these videos. It's called
they won't make any sense,
it's called Discovering a Titan. It's my Titan playlist. There's a series of videos on there by a friend of mine, Mike, in UK, who's a doctor. Okay, he knows anatomy, and he talks about this mountain that appears to look like an elephant. Okay, that's interesting. It looks like an elephant. What are the chances of that shape? It could happen. But then he's looking at the caves in it, and it's showing the eye and the tunnel. It was a giant elephant. And watch the first two videos. You'll be like, okay, scratching your head. Third video. By the time you're watching the fourth video, you're done. You're like, my entire world has changed, and I'll never see anything the same. Because this world is not what even most flat earthers think it is. Speaking of the word flat earth, it's like the word conspiracy. It's been weaponized. Yep. Conspiracy was weaponized for JFK. Flat earth was weaponized. You say flat earth, you're an idiot. You're a moron. That's what it's synonymous with. That is changing because we've been using it so much. It's okay. But I like saying true earth. Okay? So maybe we can talk about the true earth. Okay?
Yeah.
Or the globe lie. Okay? Those are better than flat earth. Although, gun to my head, is the earth flat? Absolutely it is.
Yeah, that's good. I like that true earth.
True earth.
That's very good. Couple other things maybe you want to get into. People can look up. There's a NASA video where they talk about they have to figure out how to get past the Van Allen belts. Now, we supposedly passed through those going out to the moon and back like 6 times, right? So why would they be talking about that now, saying they have to figure out how they can get through it without destroying the inhabitants of the craft as well as the craft itself because of this intense radiation? I mean, that alone tells you something. There's a huge disconnect there. And then there's another thing. I was watching some videos this morning just for fun, listening to astronauts talk about whether they could see stars and planets when they were up there in space, right?
And half of them said
they can't get their story straight. Half of them say, "Oh yeah, I saw lots of stars and planets. It's so beautiful, wonderful." And then you got the other ones saying, "No, we didn't. No, sure didn't see a thing. No stars, no planet. Didn't see anything."
Right.
It's like, really?
It's like when a kid lies and then he lies to correct that lie, and then they lie more and more, and they're out of control. Their lies are on top of lies that make no sense. So again, for any thinking person that has taken the time to look at the evidence, people say, I looked into flat earth and I ruled it out. There's a couple options. One, they didn't, they're lying, they're lazy. Two, they did and they're retarded. Okay. Sorry if that's not politically correct, but they're slowed down in their ability to think. They're
mentally challenged.
Mentally, mentally slowed. Or they've got some other agenda. I don't know. Their egos.
Or they watched one troll video.
Yeah, they're like. I did. I don't know if you heard. I did a interview on Drive Time Radio in L.A. the other day, and these guys don't believe the Earth is flat. And before I got on, the guy's like, I watched 2 documentaries. Behind the Curve, the hit piece, and the Nat Geo one. And he goes, so I'm kind of an expert on this, And I'm just like, whoa. I mean, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So it's. Again, belief is the enemy of knowing. Belief is easy. You hear something, I believe it. Your entire day is free. You can take a nap. You can drink some beer. You can watch sports. You can smoke a joint. You can do whatever you want because you're done. But if you want to investigate and find out, the truth, it might take you a week or longer to do it. And, then belief is easy, and I'm saying don't believe me, because you need to know that there's a question and then go look it up. And the other thing that I want to bring up I know we're coming up on a break, is that people go, where did you learn that on? YouTube? Well, YouTube is not a it's not a source, I can't even think what I'm saying. It's not a source of information. It's a platform where people are putting information. It's like the world. You go outside and you meet a whole bunch of people. Some of them might be fools. Some of them might be high intelligence. Some of them might be nice. Some of them might be mean. But you only want to find the nice people that are telling the truth. You have to sort it out. YouTube is the same way, where there's people that have taken the time and done the research and documented everything scientifically. They put it in a video. They put it on a platform called YouTube. And then you could look at it and see what was done and save yourself time, effort, money. It might take you a year to do that. Like, again, Taboo Conspiracy, he investigated why people don't just go to Antarctica and find the edge, find out where the dome is or whatever. And it would take people years to do the research that he put into this 30-minute video called Sorry, Antarctica is Closed. And once you watch that, you realize, oh, that's why no one can go to Antarctica. So everything's been answered already. It's just getting people to realize it. Yeah, Jimmy,
and David, you're you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Your YouTube channel is a great place for this, and I also recommend. You mentioned ODD Reality.
Right.
YouTube channel as well. There's a lot of great videos. If you just start in those two places, you're going to get a lot of good information. Whereas if you just do a search on YouTube, you're going to have to go through many pages of disinfo before you get to the good stuff.
If you go to my channel is I do short videos. Most of my videos are under 5 minutes. A lot of them are under 2 minutes. Short videos, because like no one's going to watch a 2-hour video on a topic that they hate. You're not going to go and that. So I give you a little piece of that's interesting. Or if you're willing to watch, like an hour video, like, all right, I'll watch an hour video that's up to an hour long. Go to ODD, go to Hibbler Productions, go on my, on the app or just go to the playlist on my channel, DITRH, and there's documentaries. Just go to that playlist. If you get the app today, and click the video, you're good. Watch that video, and then it'll serve you all of the other videos that are related to it. Because if somebody says, hey, can you explain circumnavigation? And I send you my video, Circumnavigation for Dummies, you're going to watch that. And then the next video that comes up is going to be a YouTube suggestion, which is propaganda. It's going to be trying to steer you in another direction. So the app always serves you in playlists. So if the person lets the video end, another one will start. And that's it usually works really well that way, because you watch a flat earth video and you go, that's really interesting. And while you're thinking about it, another one starts on the same topic or a related topic. And so then you start watching that. People get the app. And by the way, don't get the app if you don't want to be a flat earther, because if you do, you will become a flat earther. So deal with it. Don't get the app if you're not ready to handle that. Yeah.
And be careful who you share that info with.
Yeah. I tell people, once you realize the earth is flat, don't tell anybody for 2 weeks. Just research more, because they're going to come at you with something you're not ready for. All the answers are there. Get the app, go through the 21 questions, and then you'll be a flat earth pro. And you'll be able to it's easy. You think you have all the answers. Well, yeah, guess what? We have more answers than the globe has. So, things fall into 3 categories. Works on a flat earth, works on a ball earth, works on both. Like circumnavigation east-west works on both. Nothing falls into the only works on a ball earth. Nothing, ever. Yeah. I have $1,000 if somebody can come up with something.
That's great. Okay, so we're coming up against a break again. Our guest is David Weiss. We got lots more to cover. We got one more segment. So please stick around with us. Feel free to jump in the chat or give us a call. We'll be right back in just a little bit. All right. Welcome back, everybody. And if you've stayed this long, congratulations. We're happy you're here with us. And our guest is David Weiss. And okay, before we get going again, we have a question. Travis from Facebook is asking, can you ask David if there's a channel that addresses the ether band?
Yes, there is. It's called The Plain Truth, and it's hosted by a guy named Travis, just coincidentally.
Oh.
Here's the problem
Awesome.
with talking flat Earth. Everyone's becoming flat earthers. It's like I go on these channels,
Love it.
but before the show's over, like the entire audience is like, "Oh my God, the Earth is flat." So it's great, it's exciting, but I love talking to people that want to fight me on the flat Earth because I can win every time. I like winning fights. Yeah, Plain Truth. He does some excellent photography work across water. So yeah, check that out.
Yay, Travis. Very good.
Thanks, Travis.
All right. One thing I also wanted to get into with you, David, is that there are plane flights and that just don't make sense on a ball Earth. They look, if you chart them out on a ball Earth, they just go way out of their way, from one point to the next, which doesn't make any sense at all. But if you lay it out on a flat Earth, it's almost a straight line. So you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is like one of the oldest ones. If you just picture a globe Earth, and on the bottom of the globe, you have South America all the way to the tip of South America, which is right next to Antarctica. That's Santiago, Chile. On the opposite side, at the same latitude, you have New Zealand or Australia. Okay. If you wanted to fly from one to the other, you could go around that same low latitude, which is a short trip, across Antarctica perhaps, but that's not how flights go. They fly all the way up into the northern hemisphere. They cut across, the USA over to Europe, and then they go back all the way down in this big U on the globe, which makes no sense. Lay that on a flat Earth, and it's a straight line. It's a straight line. Okay. The argument that Globers will say is it's too far. They wouldn't be able to do it on a flat Earth. It's too great of a distance. But we've discovered that the one direct flight that does go it has special paint on it because it gets hot for some reason. So that would suggest that perhaps it's going a lot faster than 500 or 600 miles per hour. The other thing is at 40,000 feet, there's 200 to 300 mile an hour trade winds up there that they can get that'll push them along at that much faster speed. So you got a plane that's going 600 miles per hour on its own, put it with a 250 mile an hour tailwind, and all of those times are totally makeable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. And I remember maybe a year or two ago, there was a story about a lady who was giving birth on a plane or about to, and they diverted the flight. I think it was supposed to go to Los Angeles from Japan. Is that where it was? They ended up in Alaska.
Right. A lot of these planes end up in Alaska. There's a channel. I always say it's the worst named channel, Flat Earth, Banjo, USA, Japan, and Brazil. That's the name of the channel. It's almost it's almost as bad as the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac clock app. So I really can't complain. But this guy breaks down these emergency landings. He's got a book called 16 Emergency Landings Proven Flat Earth. It's a beautiful color book. It's large. You can buy it on Lulu, the self-publishing book site. Uh-huh. I got a few of them. I have them on my coffee table. I gave some out at the conference. Excellent book. And anyone that sits there and opens it up to any page, you start reading, you read 2 pages, and guess what? You're like, this doesn't make sense on a globe, and it sucks people in. It's called 16 Emergency Landings Proving Flat Earth. Buy it on Lulu. You won't be disappointed.
Very interesting. All right. The next thing I want to bring up is we have an atmosphere. There's air molecules up there. And according to science, this atmosphere is right adjacent to a vacuum in space. So we can prove that air, a vacuum cannot, or an atmosphere cannot sustain itself next to a vacuum. It will always evacuate into the vacuum. So that's something that we'd like to see somebody who believes in the globe Earth explain. Don't you think, David?
Well, we can't. At the conference, PhD Danny Faulkner, who teaches at a university, he was there and he was confronted. Can you explain how you can have a high pressure system next to a vacuum? And he couldn't answer it. He just wouldn't answer it because he can't. He's a globe zealot, and there is no answer for it. But if you ask, excuse me, if you ask a ball believer, they'll say, "Well, gravity." It's the only thing they can say. Gravity, magic gravity, and you can prove with a simple proof that gravity is not doing it. You get a straw, okay, a drinking straw, and you put it in your mouth. You point it downwards into a glass of water or whatever, and just by creating a very weak vacuum in your lungs, you can suck water or air up and away from gravity. Okay?
No problem.
The vacuum of your lungs is not nearly as strong as the infinite vacuum of space that they tell us is up there. Game over. Gravity can't hold anything.
Let alone trillions of gallons or quadrillions or whatever it is of gallons of seawater out there. All right. So that brings us to another concept here. Okay. Some people think that we have a dome above us, and I'm kind of inclined to go with that. Of course, we can't prove it. So we're getting into an area of speculation here with these ideas, but something is holding in our atmosphere.
Yeah, well, if you look at, if you believe that space is a vacuum or space is liquid, something needs to separate it. So some hard, fast barrier of some sort, and a dome is the strongest shape, to hold something up. I again can't prove it, but there is something separating the heavens above from the earth below. So a dome makes a lot of sense to me. There's a lot of ancient civilizations, and the Bible is a flat earth book that says it is a firmament. Werner von Braun on his headstone has a proverb that talks about the firmament. So is there a firmament? Yeah. Is it energetic? Is it glass? Is it something else? I don't know.
Well, there were a lot of nuclear missiles shot up into the atmosphere in the early 60s by both the United States and Russia. And it seems to me they were trying to find where that dome was. Somehow they figured out.
It was called Project Fishbowl. And I wasn't there. There is some videos of some bombs going off. I don't believe that nuclear bombs are real. So if they were sending bombs up there, maybe they were just some missiles with some strong bombs on it, and they were trying to poke a hole in this thing. That's possible. But again, we weren't there, and we don't know what kind of bombs they were. It's just nuclear bombs are a myth. Are you aware of that, by the way? Nuclear bombs don't exist? Okay.
Yeah, now there are bombs that are extremely powerful.
Yes.
And they had the bombs that were dropped on Japan, for instance, were extremely powerful, but they just weren't the type that we think they were.
There's video of them stockpiling TNT there. So I believe that it was a ground-placed bomb that was just exploded and incinerated the city. All the buildings that had fireproofing didn't collapse because it was there was an explosion zone, but everything else, 3 days later, trucks were running. They were selling flowers. The stores were open. That doesn't say nuclear bomb. But getting back to the dome, yeah, there. I saw a picture the other day, and I'd seen it a while ago, where it's a picture from, I don't know, it was in the 50s, where you see the mountain ranges in Alaska, and when you crank up the levels a little bit, there's texture on the sky. It looks like some sort of dome. Again, not there. Looking at a photo, I can't call that proof, but it certainly is evidence.
Yeah, and once you sort of conceptualize in your mind that we could have a dome above us, now we don't know how big that could be. It could be, many times the size of what we think our Earth is. But if you lay down on if you're out in a field somewhere and you just lay down and look up on a sunny day, I find that, I don't know if my mind is just creating it, but it appears real at that point to me.
Yeah, it's, there's the dome above us. There's our personal atmospheric dome, because we can only see a certain distance in all directions. So that kind of creates another viewing dome. The optics of the sky above are super, super complicated. The direction of the stars. Like if I take my glass dome, I put it on the table, and I take a light above it and go from left to right. Inside the dome, I'll see a little thing that looks like the sun that goes from right to left. Okay. It's so you don't know what you're seeing in the sky. This stuff could be being projected. The lights that we see could be coming through the firmament, projected into the firmament. We really don't know. It's amazing.
Yeah,
that's what globers like to do. Oh, I'll prove the Earth is a ball. Look up at the sky. That's like I'll prove my dining room table is flat. Look at the lights above it. I'll prove that my dining room table is a ball. Look at the lights above it. They're round. It's a horrible argument.
And that reminds me of an experiment. I think you did it, where you take a light source, a round light source, and you move it across a table, and that light is reflecting all the way across the flat table. But if you do the same experiment over a big ball, the light doesn't travel all the way across. It's limited in how far it goes.
Yeah, that is true. A light year is mind control. Light travels a very short distance. I think I really don't know how far light goes, but it's not that far. Dan Dimensions, the guy that sends up balloons, has a great video. I think it's called like The Edge of Day or something. And you can see light next to dark, adjacent to dark. It's amazing. And you can see how, the sun, there's a difference between sunlight and daylight, right? Daylight is the sky. It's the fluorescing of the gases. Nitrogen gas fluoresces blue. And that's what the upper atmosphere is mostly made of. And so think of the sun as a big Tesla coil. It's creating the daylight, and the sun, the direct sunlight, that's different. When the sun rises on one side of your home, you can go to the other side of the house and read a book, right? How's the sunlight getting there? It's not the sunlight, it's the daylight, the fluorescing of the sky. So after the sun goes away, the fluorescing of the sky is still shining light. And it's different, in the north versus the south because the Earth is flat. It would be the same if it wasn't. When the sun sets, like in the south at certain times of the year, it sets, and then 3 minutes later, it's pitch black. Here in the north, it's like 90 minutes later, and it's pitch black. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Another thing I wanted to touch on are satellites, or the lack thereof. Because we've got, NASA saying that there's all these satellites up there, and we don't have any photographs or video of actual satellites.
There's thousands of them. Just Google satellite in space.
We've got lots of CGI of them.
Yeah.
Tons of CGI showing them, but they're all just, it's computer generated stuff. That's not real.
Right.
But NASA, being probably the largest purchaser of helium, has lots of balloons that they put up in the air.
Yeah, there's all different kinds of balloon programs out there that they're running. So people don't even realize, and the fact that NASA doesn't talk about these programs is crazy. It's like, why are they not
Oh, because they got rockets, David.
That they're hanging these satellites. There's so many programs. Like one of them, some of them are called GPS, which is with the name of the program is, what was the name of the program? One of them is called the High Altitude Airships, which is the HAA. Then they have the High Altitude Platform, the HAP, the Lighter Than Air Vehicles, the LAV, the Higher Altitude Long Endurance, that's the HALE. They have all of these programs. It goes on and on. Strategic Platform Systems, which is known as the SPS. They have all these acronyms. Nano Balloon Systems, the NBS, the Google Loon program. They're putting up thousands and thousands of balloons. They could hold like 8,000 pounds. They could stay up there for a year. They've been crashing all over the world too. And people think that, why would they need satellites that fall around the Earth in a perfect orbit in a hostile environment, at so much higher, when they could just have these things, at 100, 150,000 feet?
Yep. Okay, we've got a question from Skype here for you, David. Mark sent in this question. He said, I lived just a few miles from Cape Canaveral and watched many space shuttles launch. Are you saying these were fake, even though I felt and watched it launch? If not, where did these craft go? Where did they go to after launch?
Yeah, so when you watch a launch of a space shuttle or any rocket, you're watching it from miles away. There's a row of trees in between you. You don't even know how big this thing is. And if you watch it, it goes up, it curves over, and it goes right down into the ocean. It goes right into the Bermuda Triangle, into restricted airspace. And it probably doesn't even come down. They probably hit a button and pop it, and it just disappears because there's really nothing to it. And they collect some of the pieces. And that's it. If you look at every single launch, it goes up, it curves over, and the engines kick off, in no time. So that's what you're watching. You've been fooled. Just please go to my channel, Mark, DITRH. Scroll down to the Space Shuttle blimp video. It's a short video. I think it's 4 minutes. And watch it and try to lay down your ego. I'm not saying that you have a big ego, but it's difficult. It's easy to lie to somebody. It's hard to convince them they've been lied to. Nobody likes admitting it, so they'll put up walls. But just look at the evidence. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and there are people that live in the same area as you, Mark, who have taken video a lot of these launches, and I think they're a little further north probably from where you are, so they have a bigger field to look at up in the sky, and they're saying the same thing, that these launches go up and they go out over the ocean, and then they curve down, and a lot of them have captured that on video, so you can find those too. It's very
and then
very
a lot
interesting.
Of the videos that you watch, the official NASA videos, you watch within the first 5 to 8 seconds of the launch, they've already cut 4 times to different camera views. You'll see different smoke patterns. You'll see different clouds in the sky. You'll see different color of the sky. It's literally a Hollywood production. Yeah,
and Hollywood works very closely. Disney works very closely with NASA. They're hand in hand. And if you look at the amount of money that NASA gets and what have they done for us? What have they done with all the billions
Velcro,
and billions?
Memory foam. Come on,
oh,
man.
Boy. Really?
I don't even know if they did Velcro.
It was so worth it. And I think they invented a pen that writes upside down, right?
And Tang.
So, gee, that was worth the hundreds of billions of dollars they've gotten, right?
$60 million a day is their budget now.
Yeah. So,
but I don't think they actually use that money. I think they're just taking it from us. NASA is, part of the control system, and anytime they need money, they just type numbers into a computer and send it to the other company, and the other company has the money. That's it.
Yeah, just like the Fed. So yeah. Yeah, it's a big con game. It's sad, And another thing, if you think about it, how long have rockets been around? Rockets have been around for a long, long time. Does anybody really think that rockets is cutting edge technology?
Yeah, there's a problem with rockets. I talked about it in my presentation, that the bigger a rocket gets, the more fuel it has to carry, the heavier it is, the bigger of an engine it needs. When a rocket gets to a certain size, it cannot fly. It just cannot fly. If you doubled the size of a rocket, you'd have to have an engine that's more than double of what the original one was. It doesn't work. Rockets, the Saturn V rocket is not a flyable rocket. Yes, small rockets, the Go Fast rocket, these things work. The Go Fast rocket in 1 second, I think, was going 2,000 miles per hour. Okay, you watch the space shuttle launch. I know it's bigger and heavier and it's got to gain speed, but it's going super slow, and that's because it's a blimp with a little rocket on the bottom.
Yeah, and then we get to SpaceX and
right.
Stuff like that, which is absolutely ludicrous. And Elon Musk's car, and come on, it's just unbelievable.
Wait, how come every Tesla showroom doesn't have a picture of that car in space? Come on, this is the greatest ad campaign ever. Nothing. Right? Nothing. They don't talk about it. Not a single photo of it. It wasn't on the cover of Time magazine. Nothing. It's so insane. I cannot even, I flip out talking about it. Hey, we're coming to the end of the show. Let me just tell people where they can find me.
Yes,
and what they
do.
can do. I'm assuming everyone listening now realizes they don't live on a globe. But if you still think you live on a globe, or you want to convince people that the Earth is flat, get the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. Watch the video every day. Play with the app. It's super fun. I put a lot of work into it, and it's really, really effective. You can also listen to me on the Flat Earth podcast, available on iTunes and SoundCloud. It's fun. Send it to your friends. Hey, check out this podcast. Do something to wake people up, because discovering that the Earth is flat isn't about the shape. It's about taking back what's being stolen from us. And what's being stolen from us is our life. It's our divinity. It's who we are. It's everything. The Flat Earth awakening is the most important thing right now, and it's the reason that all of this crap in the world is going on. It's because we're lost when you think you live on a spinning ball.
Yeah, and it just opens up your mind to so many other things, and the ability to think critically. Because that's something that society as a whole has lost, and that's what we're regaining here by analyzing these things and really looking into them deeply. And this, not just Flat Earth, but it goes across the board into all parts of culture and society. So, David, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your information. It's been a real pleasure, and hopefully sometime in the future we can have you back. And I appreciate our audience out there for hanging in there with us. Come back and see us next week again at the same time on Inside the Matrix. Goodbye, everybody.
This is Inside the Matrix, hosted by Jimmy Brent.
Who are we talking about?
Jimmy Brent. Jimmy Brent. Jimmy Brent. Live every Sunday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
It is worldwide.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location deep within the neon capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. For more information on the host and the show, please visit InsideTheMatrix.org. That's InsideTheMatrix.org. It's time to break the chains of manipulated consciousness and claim our true nature as creative divine beings. Inside the Matrix. Inside the Matrix.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.